We'll wait for the chime. There we are. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this meeting of the Cabinet of Portsmouth City Council. Welcome, everybody. I don't see anybody here who's not been to a meeting recently, so I'm not going to read all the rules about sitting on green spots and things like that, because everybody's done this before. But just to reassure everybody outside of the chamber that we've got social distancing and cleansing to make sure that we don't contribute to COVID numbers. No fire alarm expected, so we're now meeting not at Queen Victoria, we're meeting with King Henry if there's a fire. Okay, folks, there's going to be recording of this and it goes out live stream. James, have we got volume this time or not?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, we do indeed.
Are you sure? Excellent. All right, so I'm just going to go around and introduce everybody. The late Tristram Samuel. Shall we start with the late Tristram Samuel?
Afternoon, members. Tristan Samuels, Director of Regeneration, and slightly out of breath. Apologies.
That's all right. And you did. I was very late to the last meeting, so you're in extremely good company. So should we go along the back row?
Alison Critchley from Children, Families and Education.
I'm Andrew Waggett, I'm the Energy Services Team Manager.
Hi, I'm Hayley Trower, I'm the Air Quality Improvement Manager.
Councillor George Mashwick of the Paulsgrove Ward. James Harris, Senior Local Democracy Officer.
Peter Bell, City Solicitor, thank you.
I'm Gerald Van Jackson, I'm Leader of the Council and chairing this meeting.
David Williams, Chief Executive.
I'm Julian Pike, Deputy Director of Finance.
Jason.
Councillor Jason Sackley, Cabinet Member for Health, Wellbeing and Social Care.
Ben Dowling, Cabinet Member for Culture, Leisure and Economic Development.
Councillor Derwin Sanders, Cabinet Member for Housing and Preventing Homelessness.
Councillor Kimberly Barrett, Cabinet Member for Climate Change and the Green Recovery.
Dave Ashmore, Cabinet Member for Community Safety and Environment.
Hugh.
Hugh Mason, Cabinet Member for Planning Policy and City Development.
Chris Atwell, Cabinet Member for Communities and Central Services.
Susie Horton, Cabinet Member for Children, Families and Education. Lynn Stagg, Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transportation.
Okay, thanks very much indeed. Colleagues, let's run through the agenda. And colleagues, good to see Councillor George Mashwick here. This meeting is open to all councillors, and everybody is always welcome. It's good to see you here, George. We have no apologies for absence. Any declarations of interest, colleagues? No. Okay. Item 3: holiday activities, food, fun, and something or other programme. Alison. Leap in.
Thank you. I was really delighted that Councillor Horton asked for an update and a briefing on the holiday activities and food programme. This is something new to Portsmouth. We reached 37% of families eligible for free school meals across the summer, and provided some really worthwhile activities and a nutritious meal to families who wouldn't normally benefit from the sort of holiday clubs that take place. We were really pleased as well to be able to work with a really wide range of local providers in Portsmouth, put on a really varied programme of activities, and work with people who hadn't necessarily provided this sort of activity before. And provide a foundation really for ongoing partnerships with organisations that can provide opportunities for children. This is Have Fun Pompey hasn't finished. We've got a programme at Christmas as well, and we'll be running from the weekend before Christmas through to the beginning of January. And we were also really pleased in last week's budget announcement that the government has confirmed that there will be further funding for at least 1 year. It wasn't completely clear how long that will be going on for, but a similar amount of money for a programme again next year. There's more information in the report. I would also encourage members, if you haven't had a chance to do so, do have a look at the little video which captures, I think, the essence and children themselves talking about the programme.
Excellent, thank you very much, Alison. I've had very good feedback. Councillor Susie Horton.
Thank you. and thank you, Alison, for the report. I think the reason I wanted this to come to Cabinet is actually it's a real cross-portfolio and cross-directorate programme, and I'd like to place on record my thanks to the officers in housing, education, and also the tackling poverty coordinator. We were lucky to have that government money, but actually it's how you choose to spend it and use it that makes the difference, and I think we did really well. And I think it's really important to say that we didn't do an either-or with free school meal vouchers and the Have Fun Pompey programme, that we actually wanted this to, both of those things to go out to the most vulnerable families in the city. So Alison's covered a bit of it, but actually as well as benefiting our children and families, and it also was a really positive thing for our local voluntary and community sector groups where they received that money, so that enabled them to sustain their provision when we know it's been really, really difficult times. As Alison's just said, it's really pleasing to hear that there will be more money coming this way, which was announced last week. We need to see what that translates to, of course, but also we've already started planning for Christmas, and there are good foundations in place, as Alison says, that we can build on this. We worked with 36 providers, but most impressively, we provided around about 14,000 days for children to access. And yes, do look at the YouTube video. It's really, really heartening. I do think we need to be honest here. As Alison highlighted, there was 30-something% of eligible children who came to them. I went along to a family day to try and speak to families who'd actually chosen to take up the offer, and one of the parents did say, actually, it's the people who aren't here you need to try and get here, not me. And I think that's a really good point, and I think we can't be complacent even though there is a lot to celebrate. So thank you very much to everyone who's made this happen, and I look forward to seeing what happens at Christmas and next year.
Thanks. Councillor Chris Atwell.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Alison. And also I'd like to thank Mark Sage, the Tackling Poverty Coordinator. A lot of people have done a lot of work in this space over the last 18 months. I'm really pleased that we'll be providing school vouchers again this Christmas holiday. In addition to that, I'd just reflect on some of the other work that's happening across the city that we've been helping with. We've been working with a whole range of partners to ensure people are signposted to help. We've been running an income maximisation campaign. And of course last week we pulled together over 15 organisations, charities and individual groups to thank them for their work, ensuring that some of the most vulnerable families in the city have had something to eat and have been kept warm. So thank you to everybody for their work in this piece of work.
Yeah, it was a really good event with the Lord Mayor to say thank you to people from the food banks and other charities and voluntary organisations working to make sure that people didn't go hungry over the pandemic, and it was really heartening to see people here. I understand with the Christmas activities, the Chief Executive has volunteered to do his traditional role as Father Christmas, and the Director of Finance, Chris Ward, has decided he will do his traditional role as Scrooge. Okay, colleagues, thank you very much indeed, Alison, and everybody involved in this. So thank you. That's a really good piece of work. Okay, moving on. Next item, and we should. There have been some people who joined us during the meeting, so we'll now get them to introduce themselves, who have followed Tristan's example in turning up late. So it's clearly a directorate thing. Michelle, do you want to go first?
Thank you, Councillor Vernon Jackson. My apologies for being late. I was on another meeting. I did try and stop them. Obviously, nothing is as important as coming here, but they were a talker.
You can't get buses until they're 4 turn up at once, can they?
I know. Good morning, everybody. My name's Michelle Love. I'm the Safer Travel Manager within the Regeneration Directorate. I'm here with my colleague Chai, who will introduce himself in a moment, and we'll be presenting the bike hangers report. Thank you.
Thank you. Chai?
Apologies again for the lateness. Chai Sharp, Active Travel Officer in Michelle Love's team.
Great. Thanks, Bruce. Lovely to see you, and Chai and Michelle. Okay, let's move along to rapid electric vehicle charging infrastructure for taxis and private hire. Hayley.
Thanks, Leader. So I'm back again this month. This time it's not about CAS, I'm sure you'll be pleased to hear. This time it's about the installation of rapid electric vehicle charging points. This is related to our work to improve air quality in the city, and we're trying to increase the uptake of low emission and zero emission vehicles amongst the taxi and private hire trade. We have been successful in being awarded just shy of £500,000 from DEFRA, from central government, for the installation of these charging points. We've undertaken a survey with members of the taxi and licensed vehicle trade in Portsmouth to find out the locations that they would like the charging points. We have, however, been restricted by availability of PCC-owned car parks and the availability of electricity supply. So we haven't been able to meet exactly where the drivers would like the charging points, but we've come up with a short list of 4 locations for the charging points that are as close as possible to where the trade would like them. We are proposing these 4 locations and we are trying to have multiple chargers in each location so that drivers won't be disappointed if they turn up and somebody else is already plugged in. The chargers are rapid chargers, so they charge vehicles quickly and they'll be useful for the trade to use in between jobs or while having a break. So today we are asking that Cabinet approves the recommendations to install rapid electric vehicle charge points in the 4 locations as listed in paragraph 2.1. We are also asking for delegated authority for the Cabinet Member for Traffic and Transport to approve final locations should the further feasibility studies show that any of those locations are not appropriate or for whatever reason we can't get the power supply. And we are also asking for a review once the charge points have been in for some time to have a look at whether we open them up for wider use, because at the moment we're intending they're just for the taxi and private hire trade. Thank you.
Hayley, I'm terribly sorry, the papers that I've got have only got the integrated impact assessment. They don't have your report. I've got multiple copies of an integrated impact assessment, but just for the record, where are the 4 places you are suggesting?
Okay, there are Stubbington Avenue car park at North End, the D-Day car park in Southsea, London Road car park, London Road Cosham, and the Park and Ride at Tipner.
Okay. Lynn.
Thank you. Although this isn't directly related to the CAS, the Clean Air Zone, it is obviously linked to it because we want to try and encourage as many of our Hackney drivers and PHV drivers to switch to low-emission vehicles, including electric vehicles. And being aware that they're on the move so much of the time, they do need rapid charging. They can't afford to spend sort of 6 hours charging their vehicles. So putting them in as many places as possible it is one of our main aims. As Hayley said, they're not all where taxi drivers would like them to be, but that is largely for technical reasons, such as the electric supply isn't what it should be to take to do that rapid charging. I mean, this has happened as well with the on-street charging points. Sometimes the lamp columns where they're put in are just not suitable, so they have to put in a bollard. So, but it will be reviewed, and if they're not suitable, if they're underused, then we will look at, as it says in the paper, looking at making them available for other users as well, but also undoubtedly of opening up more rapid charging units across the city at a later date.
So, Hayley, I know we have many more private hire vehicles than we have Hackney licensed taxis, and these potentially would be really helpful to both. But people in the taxi trade have said to me that they sit for long periods at taxi ranks waiting for a fare. Why are we not doing these at the really popular taxi ranks?
We currently don't have any vehicles licensed in Portsmouth, Hackney vehicles that are electric or even plug-in hybrid. So at the moment, there's no demand for that.
But if there is in the future, we'll consider putting them in at ranks.
Yeah, of course, we can do that and find some more funding for that. Yeah.
That's really helpful. Thank you very much indeed. So effectively, the only people who are doing this are the private hire trade, and therefore putting them in a taxi rank means they couldn't use them because they can't be at a taxi rank. Thanks. That's entirely sensible, completely logical. Moving on to Mr. Ashmore, will you follow the same?
Oh, yeah, I was just going to say, I understand why people would want them at a taxi rank, but I thought the purpose of a taxi rank is that you don't stay there long because people will get in your taxi and drive off. So that would also be...
You've clearly never been a taxi driver. You spend a lot of time sitting there.
No, but obviously the purpose of them, I'm not saying it is that way, and they want more, but if you plugged it in, you'd want to be away as soon as possible. You don't just want to sit there, do you?
Okay, I've got Councillor Hugh Mason and Councillor George Matchwick.
Just two questions. One, why is there only one charger going in the Stubbington Avenue car park, whereas there are three in the others? And secondly, how are we going to confine these chargers just to the taxi trade and the hire trade, and thus prevent other people from using them? So how are we going to manage that?
Haley?
On the Stubbington Avenue one, it's simply we're waiting for feasibility. So as it says in the report, we want some delegated authority from Councillor Stagg. Once we know exactly how much power these sites can take, we think it can take one there, but if it can take more and we've got the budget, we might be able to put more in there, but we've only got enough at the moment for 10 chargers, so we've kind of had to split them. And then how we limit use, you can use a smart card, and we will issue those to drivers licensed with Portsmouth City Council, so that they have to use the smart card to access the charge point.
Councillor George Matchwick.
Thank you, Leader. I was part of the licensing committee that Hayley presented the original information to, and I'd just like to say thank you for adding one in the north of Portsmouth. I know that was a massive debate amongst all the councillors that were present for the meeting. Just as a quick question, firstly, why was the original proposed location in Cosham not viable, the one by the community centre? Because I know that was the one that all the councillors were kind of keen on. And secondly, kind of highlighting what Hugh said, we've got 10 charges, I believe. Is there any likelihood of getting additional charges within the next 12, 24 months, or is this kind of what we're now set at for the foreseeable future?
So the location in Cosham, we were looking at a location sort of in the town centre. That site is actually earmarked for development, so that's the fire station development that the regeneration team are working on. So yeah, there's no point putting it in because it'd have to come out again. And the 10, that's just what we've got funding for at the moment. We're always on the lookout for more funding, so as and when funding's available, we will put more in.
Thank you.
Haley, thank you. As I read this report, there are 3 going in at Tipner, 3 going in Cosham, 1 going in North End, and the south of the city is left with the rump. We get 3 out of 7 in the south of the city. So great prejudice towards the north of the city here. Haley, can I ask, the ones we have in public car parks, and we don't charge people for the electricity, is that going to be the same for these?
These we will charge for electricity. We're currently in negotiations with the supplier about the rates. We will, however, as advised by licensing committee, make sure that it's competitive with the existing charge points in the city. So there's already rapid charge points, I think at Morrison's, and there's one at the Port and one at Whitelink. So we'll make sure
and
the rates
Tesco's.
are Tesco's, yes. So we'll make sure the rates are lower than those.
As the owner of one who has to charge these things, I kind of know where they are. Okay, folks. Oh, Jason, sorry. As most of these are in your ward.
Yeah, sorry, I was about to say, Chair, 50% of the sites fall within Nelson Ward. But if these are specifically only for the use of taxis, I'm curious as to the location of the park and ride, because that's not near any taxi ranks at all. So I do wonder about the use that will come to it. Are these specifically just for the use of taxis and for nobody else?
And private hire.
Sorry, yeah, taxis and private hire. I'm sorry, I'm referring to them collectively. And I appreciate someone said there's no taxis that are currently electric. So, however, so these will not be usable by anybody else, i.e. no other members of the public. So unless we get private hire driving up to the park and ride and plugging in up there, which of course is nowhere near any well, I don't know. There's no report for a start, which is difficult to actually make any reference to, because I've never had a set of cabinet paper. There's no report included, which is slightly ridiculous. But however, I don't know. I think I remain to be convinced. Anything's a welcome addition, but I'm not necessarily sure about the park and ride. However,
so I think the thing to do is see how it goes, and if we get more money, we can redistribute. In terms of the report, James, I've been very kindly given a copy by the Chief Executive, but it looks as if other people, some other people haven't got it. Oh, well, some have got it, but be interesting if we could get Democratic Services to look to make sure they do include copies of the report when in the packs that go out to everybody. Okay, colleagues, are you happy that we support this as it is? Agreed. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Thank you, Hayley. Andrew, hello, welcome, Warmer Homes Project.
Thank you, Leader. This is a noting report, and it notes the delivery of the Warm Homes Project to date. So the Warm Homes Project is funded by BEIS, the Department of Business, Energy and Industrial...
Can you translate BEIS into English?
Indeed. The Department of Business, Energy and Industrial Strategy, and it's funding from... It's funding from the GHG LAD scheme, the Green Homes Grant Local Authority Delivery Scheme, which Portsmouth City Council was successful in winning 2 tranches of over the last 12 months. So the council won initially £3 million and then an additional £6 and a bit million to make a total of £9.3 million that's been spent on eligible measures, which are solar PV, external wall insulation and air source heat pumps primarily within households in Portsmouth, but also a consortium area including a lot of the South Hampshire authorities and West Sussex authorities. The funding pays for fully funded measures up to a value of £10,000. So measures such as external wall insulation command a higher price in that, so external wall insulation is around £10,000. Solar PV, we're down at about maybe £5,000 per intervention. So this report really just sets out the numbers that have been delivered at the time of writing the report. The funding runs on until the end of March of next year, so I would just caveat that there's still further to go. It references the amount of carbon saved, the numbers of interventions made, the monetary savings from those households that have had retrofit, but also identifies some lessons learned, which we hope will be useful going forward as we seek to win further funding for energy efficiency retrofit of domestic properties. I think I can run through these blow by blow, but I think what I'm just intending to say here is that there are, the best part of 750 homes, I think, at the moment that have been treated under these measures, and around 50% of those interventions have been made in the Portsmouth area. Those interventions, when they're made, can make obviously significant impacts on the running costs of people's homes, and because the money's targeted at households with income of £30,000 or less, it can be significantly important. I did this, I think, at the last cabinet, but I would hopefully point you in the direction, or if I may, point you in the direction of not just some of the numbers in here that are a bit, there's some bare statistics, but some of the case studies in the back as well, where we've treated individual households and we've made significant impacts in those people's lives.
Okay, thank you very much indeed, Andrew. Colleagues, Kimberly.
Yeah, no, I'm really pleased this has come forward, this report. It really does show the excellent work we're doing as a council and the work that Andrew's energy team are doing across the city and further afield as well, because it's not just in Portsmouth that his team are working in. But I think, we have to acknowledge that there are issues at the moment with fuel poverty, with the energy companies collapsing. So any sort of initiative that the Warmer Homes Project and Switch On Portsmouth are doing is helping towards all those people that really do need the help. When you look at the report and it says that with help from the energy team, fuel bills or household bills could drop you can make an average saving of around £350. That is a lot of money to a lot of people that that are facing fuel poverty and in general at the moment with the situation that's happened with COVID. So I think credit really does go to Andrew and his team. And also, it's mentioned in the report as well, but our Warmer Homes project is the second largest LAD funding scheme given in England with the 9.3 million. And then Andrew's team have then managed to get a further 8.6 million. So that just shows what fantastic work and why Andrew keeps having to get more trophy cabinets, I think, as well. So I'm just really pleased. Anything we can do to help people out of fuel poverty, reduce their bills, and also a really big thing as well, reduce our carbon emissions across the city is a good thing. So thank you, and looking forward to seeing more of this.
Thank you. Darren Sanders.
Thanks, Gerald, and thanks to you, Kimberly and Dave, for bringing this report here. When the energy efficiency strategy was presented to Cabinet 2 years ago, we were presented with a problem, which is that the least energy efficient buildings in the city weren't council run, they were private. Many were private rented, which is why I'm contributing to this, because we know we need to cut costs there. And this shows a great level of success since then. 237 Portsmouth houses have benefited. £250,000 back in people's pockets, and God knows they need that. An average year one mitigation of 1.3 tonnes of carbon emissions, totaling 950 tonnes to date. That shows that this administration and this council under this administration is serious about two things. Firstly, being ambitious about tackling the energy crisis that is affecting our city, and that's become increasingly true, as Kimberly has said, over the last few months. And secondly, this council under this administration's uncanny ability to get bucket loads of government money. I think Andrew's actually hiding his light under a bushel here. This is only the second biggest project of its type in the country, showing the level of our ambition. I'm pretty confident that when the extra money does turn up, it will become the biggest of its type in England. Again, showing our ambition to make sure we tackle the energy crisis and make sure that we save carbon, so contributing to helping the climate emergency, and also crucially putting money back into people's pockets. This is an amazing report. This is an amazing project. It is benefiting the lives of particularly low-income private tenants across the city, and it's yet another example of us hiding our light under a bushel, which perhaps we might do less of in future. Thank you, Gerald.
Thank you. Anybody else? David?
Yeah, as always, reading through this report, it's really glowing. It's something to be proud of. The PCC and the Portsmouth City Council and the energy team there, we're a success story that's continuing to happening. The fact that, we can now offer up our experiences to Bays and, on how we deliver these things, that's something to be, that's an incredible achievement. That's something worth noting about. It's worth shouting about. As Darren said, don't hide it under a bushel. That's really good. Everything that's needed to be said has been said on the report and by Kimberly and by Darren there. But I do think that where is it, on the report that I was reading there, that the council will continue to treat the delivery of domestic energy retrofit as a priority to alleviate fuel poverty and reduce household bills. And I think as well as all the good things we've mentioned, it shows, as well as decarbonising, as well as greening the city, as well as improving people's health here, we're also concentrating on tackling the fuel poverty there, which is crushing to so many low-income or no-income households. So people don't have to choose between energy and eating. It really is a serious thing we're doing, and you're working wonders, Andrew, and the team. So, well done. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, folks. It just seems to me that on this, Portsmouth is leading the country, and I think we need to be. We needn't be complacent. There is so much more to do with so many more homes in the city, but we really are leading the country, and that is great. So thank you very much, Andrew, and to all your team. Colleagues, are you happy with this? Thank you. Okay, let's move along to the next thing. Youth Justice Team. Bruce, lovely to see you. Thank you much for coming.
Thank you for having me. This is the requirement that every year the Cabinet and then full Council approves the Portsmouth Annual Youth Justice Strategic Plan. The plan is for 2 years. The recommendations are for approval by Cabinet and recommends full approval by full Council. I don't think there's a need for me to summarise the content, and Appendix 1 is the plan, including the action plan that goes with it.
Thank you very much indeed. Susie.
Thank you, Leader. When things are statutory, we sometimes just nod them through, and actually I just wanted to take a few minutes to highlight some of the points in this plan, and also give my thanks to the service leader at the Council who's been working under extraordinary circumstances over the pandemic, and also to Superintendent Claire Jenkins, who has really been very inspirational to work with around reinforcing the really good partnership working. I sit on that board, and I've noticed such a difference in the last couple of years with the values that we really hold dear, which are being upheld all the time. And I want to draw attention to a couple of bits in the report, but before I do that, I just want to emphasise the fact that we're talking about vulnerable children here. Criminality sometimes seems to equate with a loss of sympathy or empathy for children, and many of the young people that we're talking about who end up in these situations are being exploited or are genuinely vulnerable, which is why it's so important that this report dovetails with a lot of the other work that we're doing across the council. So there's a part in the report which talks about the area of focus, and it's really important that we do have that focus, that we do want to reduce first-time entrants. We've got a really, really high level in Portsmouth, and we want to obviously reduce reoffending and the use of custody, and I think that's where there's some really great work that's been going forward around the child-first approach, and that it really reflects a lot of the stuff that we've got in our own children's trust plan. And so the 6 priority areas are listed in the report, but I just want to list them again because it's about education, it's about safeguarding, it's about physical health, it's about social, emotional, mental health, it's about care leavers, and it's also about special educational needs. And sometimes we come across these things through different portfolios and through different avenues, but it just stresses to me of how important early intervention is, how important family support is, and how important schools are to actually on the journey of a vulnerable young person. And we can and we do regularly influence their life chances. So we know we have to do this report. We know that it's part of the statutory responsibility, but I just wanted to just stop and pause and think about the young people who are at the heart of this. Thank you.
Thanks, Susie. Colleagues, anybody else? Our job here is to pass it to full council, but thank you very much indeed. Bruce, can you please pass on thanks to everybody working in the youth offending team and our colleagues who work with them. Okay, thank you very much indeed. Moving on to item 7, bike hangers. Welcome, Michelle Chai. We've had a deputation from Councillor Gerarda, which I've circulated to all members of the Cabinet. So thanks very much for that. Michelle, are you going to introduce this, or is Chai?
Chai's going to introduce it, and I will be on hand to answer any questions that he may need some assistance with.
I have complete confidence in Chai's ability to answer the questions.
There you go then.
Thank you very much, Leader. So this paper is about the bike hanger pilot. It's something we introduced in March of this year. It ran for 6 months, installing 9 hangers into 8 different streets. We chose to use 3 different providers to try and understand how people took to them, how they delivered them, and the different types. From this, during this, to install them on streets where there were residents parking, we used an ETRO, which ran for the 6 months. From the ETRO, we had 2 responses. One was to ask for a hanger, another was an objection regarding parking. We also did a survey, which a report is inside this report from the survey. A lot of the feedback was very positive from the residents who had a hanger. They liked how they worked and obviously used them well. We then moved on to look at what we could do if these were introduced in a second phase. During the pilot, we developed a street nomination tool so that other residents who saw these types of bike hangers could nominate their street. During that nomination time, we've had 195 nominations, and that continues to go up every day. And that created this long list, which is within the report. And from this long list in phase 2, we have located 8 locations for phase 2. So from this report, what I need is the agreement to continue on with bike hangers from phase 1. Phase 2 will be funded from the Capability Fund, which we got recently, and £30,000 of it will go towards that.
Okay, colleagues, Lynn.
Thank you, Chair. This is a city predominantly of terraced houses. Even if you've got a forecourt, very often there's no way of locking your bike into the forecourt. You can lock your bike, but people can take it over the wall quite easily. So these bike hangers are a brilliant way of encouraging more people to use bikes, but also those who've already got them to store them safely, securely, and not have to bring them through the house. I mean, on days like we've had recently with torrential rain, the last thing you want to do is to wheel a bike through your house. The carpet's ruined, etc. So this is a way of as I say, stopping that from happening. It's had overall positive responses. 1 or 2 people have complained because they're losing a parking space. But when you think that for 1 parking space you can get 6 bikes into that, possibly 6 cars off the road, maybe not as many as that, but at least 6 cars not being driven. It's proved very successful. As Chai just said, 195 applications. Across the city, more and more people are wanting them. And it's predominantly in the south of the city where the problems are worse, because the gardens, very few houses have got front gardens or rear access or side access. That's where predominantly the requests are coming from, but it's all over the city. If people need them, if they haven't got anywhere to safely store their bikes, then it obviously has been successful, and I hope that you'll vote in favour of it. Thank you.
Okay, I think this has worked really well, and it does mean that people are able to put their bikes in somewhere where they're not going to be nicked, which we have to be frank is a problem, and if you're in flat-fronted properties, you really don't have anywhere to store your bike unless you cycle it all the way through your house. So I think this is really good, and I'm sure we'll be supportive. Chai?
Can I just add in that as soon as we put them on street, they were full, and there's waiting lists for all of them already. So as soon as the next ones go in, I would assume that would be the same.
Excellent, and we will continue the hunt for more money to be able to put more in elsewhere. Councillor Hugh Mason.
At 3.7 in your report, you note that we used 3 different approaches, 3 different companies. Were they all equally successful, and how will we choose which company we will use for the new cycle hangers?
The answer to the first is no, but Chai.
2 seconds. So all 3 of them were put in. All 3 of them did the job that was asked. Some of them can't carry as many hangers as others. So some were able to do 4, some were able to do 6 spaces, some were able to do 5. I've
taken a methodology for this, but also feedback of how they delivered. So some of them delivered better than others, and I would work internally with my team and come back to the main councillors to make a final decision on who we will move forward with for the next phase.
Okay, and my understanding is one of the companies is local, is that right?
One of the companies is actually based in Portsmouth, correct. They've produced a number of cycling items for us in the city, and they delivered very well on the production when we did ours.
Okay. Anybody else? No, it seems a really good project, and thank you everybody for this. Really good. Okay, colleagues, you happy with that? Thank you. That gets to the end of the agenda. Thank you very much indeed for coming, everybody. See you all soon. That's the end of the meeting.